Uh, the there's a crisis of capitalism happening too, and I want to talk about this at some length. And it's not just capitalism, but it's capitalism basically eating alive. First capitalism, big capital, eats small competitors, because one of the things that capitalism hates is competition. Free enterprise loves competition. Capitalism doesn't. So first, and the only way you can guarantee competition is by government law, by things like the Sherman Antitrust Act. But Reagan stopped enforcing that in '82, so you got no competition in so many industries now in the United States that they can just drag doctors off airplanes. I mean, that kind of thing, number one. But number two, now we've got capitalism going after government. And I want to share that with you, what's happening in Britain, what's happening in the United States, what's happening in cities all over the United States, and what kind of damage it's doing too. Here at home and around the world, there's another crisis unfolding, and it's been unfolding since the 80s. This really began with Thatcherism and Reaganism in a big way. I mean, the fertile ground was laid in the 70s and 80s by a group of billionaire funders who took what were considered crackpot economic theories. Milton Friedman, von Mises, Hayek, Friedrich Hayek, Ludwig von Mises. These guys, today we'd refer to them as neoliberal or libertarian economists. And, they were always considered, they were always considered just like way out of the mainstream, fringe, crazy people. But their economic policies always worked to the benefit of the top 5%, arguably the top 10%, and certainly the top 1%, the vast majority of the top 1% or less. And so they had a real staying power. Newspapers bought by very wealthy people, and big corporations would promote their interests and their points of view, and on and on and on like this. And, and as a consequence of that, what we've been seeing around the world is the destruction of the social state. And we're seeing this in the European Union with, we saw it in a big way in Greece. We've seen it in Ireland. We've seen it in Spain. We've seen it in Italy, Portugal. We're seeing it, thank you, Troy. We're seeing it here in the United States. We've been seeing it in the United Kingdom since 1978. We've been seeing it in the U.S. since 1981. It's going back and forth in several South American countries. So, and really what it is it's all about the money. And of course, money is power, so it's money and power. The idea that we learned in elementary school, that there should be a clear separation between what is publicly owned, what is the commons, what we all do for ourselves in order to make our lives better, in order to make our government work better, in order to make our companies work better, in order to foster competition and diminish the power of monopoly in the marketplace. All of these things are being stripped, and they're being replaced with this raw, naked, libertarian, neoliberal form of capitalism that, like I said, only serves the top, in a big way the top 1%, in a modest way the top 10%, and basically dumps on everybody in the bottom 90%. And I give you two examples, one from the United Kingdom, one from the United States. The one from the United Kingdom is by Owen Jones in the New York Times last week. The headline is, "Why Britain's Trains Don't Run on Time, Capitalism." And you can take this back to John Major, the conservative who in the 1990s sold off the British-owned railroads. Britain used to own their own railroads. Maggie Thatcher wanted to do this. She was not successful in pulling off the whole thing. But it was called the Great Sell-Off of the 1990s. And what Prime Minister Major said was, Rail privatization will bring a better, cheaper, and more effective service for the commuter. Right. It's going to be a better thing for the people who use the trains in the United Kingdom. I quote from the article by Owen Jones in the New York Times. If how the railways run is a guide to the state of a nation, then it tells you something that Britain is in the middle of its biggest railway strike since 1994. Not coincidentally, that was the year the National Railroad Network was privatized by the conservative government of Prime Minister John Major. The long-running battle between rail unions and the companies is estimated to have cost Britain's economy over about $375 million and has even hit house prices in the region. Now, why would it hit house prices? Well, if you've ever lived in a city that has a mass transit system, you know that as soon as it is publicly known that a railway station, a train station, a metro station is going to be sited in a particular neighborhood, all the home values in that neighborhood explode. Because people can more easily and cheaply commute to work and to shop and to theaters and to everything. I got to work today on the train. I walked 8 or 9 blocks down to the L'Enfant Metro Center. I walked down underground, got on the train. 5 stops later, come up, and I'm 2 blocks from the radio studio here. The whole trip took 5 minutes. Once I was on the train, maybe 8 minutes. It's wonderful. I mean, the train system in this town is just marvelous. And, it's been the victim of years and years of disrepair because the Republicans control Congress and they don't like any kind of, let's not spend anything that might help Washington, D.C. It's a liberal city, and it's filled with black people. The Republican Party does not, they've always hated Washington, D.C. But, finally the metro system got a guy who is like, okay, damn it, we're going to fix this thing. But in the UK, the trains are not running on time. And as Owen Jones writes, this points out the perils of introducing market ideology into key public services, a project driven not by the needs of passengers, but by uncompromising dogma. Dogma, what I was talking about, ideology. This ideology that, competition drives down. In fact, I saw a tweet from Paul Ryan on this a couple of days ago. Competition drives down prices. We've got to have more competition in medical services to get the prices down. Right. Right now, doctors are competing. You can call 5 different doctors. You can compare prices. Oh, he means health insurance. So, yeah, right. Well, competition among health insurance companies, not so much. It's like anything that's complex. It's like when you have to read a 20-page policy and you've got to compare that to 20 other 20-page, that's not competition. That's just craziness. But anyway, back to British Rail. On the eve of the great sell-off of the 1990s, Mr. Major pledged that rail privatization would bring a better, cheaper, and more effective service for the commuter, in quotes. To repeat that promise to beleaguered passengers today would at best provoke mirthless laughter. On Southern, this is one of the privatized railroads, passenger satisfaction slumped to 21% this year. Nearly half of those surveyed reported delays in their last journey. The company has become a byword for overcrowding, delays, and understaffing. The privatizers claimed that competition would lift standards of service, put the needs of customers first, reduce the burden on the taxpayer, rid the system of inefficiencies, and drive down prices. On all scores, the privatization of Britain's railways is an embarrassment. So that's Britain. Now here in the U.S., Sarah Lazar, writing over at Alternet, based back on April 4th also. Great juxtaposition of these two stories. Cities, we were all over this back 5-6 years ago when Chicago privatized their parking meters, which was stupid. Mike Pence privatizing roads in Indiana, stupid. I mean, public infrastructure is public for a reason, right? It should be public for a reason. But now they're privatizing their red light and their camera systems that catch people running red lights. Now, this is the best example of why some things should be public and some things should be private. What is the reason why we have traffic lights? Do we have traffic lights so that our cities can make money? Or do we have traffic lights so people don't die in traffic accidents and so the traffic moves smoothly? I would argue it's the latter reason. Right? You have traffic light and you time the length of your yellow lights so that people can clear the intersection and get ready for the green light and the red light and all that kind of, I mean, there's a science to this, actually. There are people who go to college to study this stuff because the whole purpose of traffic lights is for the public good. It's to keep traffic moving well and reduce the probability of people dying in car crashes. So here, Sarah Lazar, this could happen to you. Revenue-hungry cities mess with traffic lights to write more tickets and make driving more dangerous. But it's not the cities doing it. It's the private companies they've contracted it out to. Because now some cities are saying, hey, let's run our traffic lights for profit. As privately owned, Sarah writes, as privately owned red light cameras proliferate across the country, cities and towns shortening yellow lights spike the number of tickets and thereby increase revenue. The profits come at a social cost, however, as shorter yellow light times are associated with an increase in car accidents. So a few people die, more little kids in the back seat who get T-boned by the car coming through the light, trying to run die. But hey, you've got private red light camera companies making more money. Isn't capitalism wonderful? We've got to wake the hell up about the difference between public and private in this country. I know that the Republicans stripped it out of our public curriculum in our schools in the 1980s. We need to bring it back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
There is a difference between doing something for profit and doing something for the public good. And almost without exception, you can't do both. This is remarkable, how they're doing this. In February, the city of Fremont, California, they're refunding almost $500,000 in tickets because they shortened the yellow light at two key intersections from 4.7 to 4 seconds. These intersections were outfitted with red light cameras run by Red Flex Traffic Systems, for-profit corporation. According to the newspaper.com, the slight variation in yellow light time had a tremendous impact, increasing the yellow time by 0.7 of a second in 2015. Slash the number of tickets issued. This is when they undid what they did. Slash the number of tickets by 77%. And shortening it back to 4 seconds in February 2016 caused a 445% spike in ticketing. So this is going from 4.7 seconds, which was the optimal time, down to a 4-second yellow light, caused a 445% increase in tickets. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Fremont is not the only city caught manipulating yellow lights for profit. Chicago Tribune investigation revealed in 2014 that the Rahm Emanuel administration quietly issued newer, shorter yellow light standards this spring that generated 77,000 red light camera tickets that would not have been allowed before the rule change. The change occurred when the city switched from red light camera company Red Flex Traffic System to Xerox State and Local Solutions. Amazing. Following the public outrage, Rahm Emanuel was recently forced to triple the yellow light grace period. But according to James Walker, the executive director of the National Motorists Association Foundation, the problem persists across the country. He says there's something in the order of 400 communities that are using these private, for-profit red light cameras. And there is no evidence that these improve public safety. In fact, they increase the probability of, Emanuel has credited the cameras for a 47% reduction in dangerous red angular T-bone crashes. But the Tribune study, which accounted for declining accident rates in recent years, found cameras reduced right angle crashes by just 15%. At the same time, the study calculated a corresponding 22% increase in rear-end crashes that caused injuries, illustrating a trade-off between the camera's costs and benefits. This could happen to you. It's amazing. It's all over the country, too. Capitalism wins, we lose.